Who authorized this pathetic excuse for a meal for my daughter? Damon Moretti's voice did not merely break the silence. It shattered the very atmosphere of the grand dining hall, a room designed to intimidate kings. He stood at the head of a mahogany table that stretched 30 feet, polished to a mirror shine that reflected the flickering candlelight like a pool of dark blood. Damon was the undisputed titan of the Moretti Empire, a man whose name was whispered with a mix of reverence and terror in the boardrooms of elite society in the shadows of the underworld. He was a man of iron and ice, but tonight, looking at his 6-year-old daughter, Elena, he felt his composure fracturing. Elena sat at the opposite end of the table, looking smaller than she ever had. She was a delicate porcelain doll, lost in a sea of velvet and silk. Her eyes, the same piercing emerald green as her mother's, were fixed steadfastly on her plate. On that plate sat a bowl of thin, cold broth and a single piece of hard, crusty bread. A meal meant for a prisoner, not the heiress of the city's most powerful family. For 3 years, Elena had lived in a world of absolute silence. Since the night the car explosion had claimed her mother's life and left Elena's throat scarred by smoke and trauma, she'd not uttered a single word. Not a cry, not a whisper, not even a breath of song. "I asked a question," Damon roared, his fist slamming onto the table with a force that made the heavy silverware dance. The sound echoed off the vaulted marble ceilings, a thunderclap in the graveyard silence of the house. The head of staff, a man named Miller, turned a sickly shade of gray. His hands trembled, his eyes darting toward the shadows where the security detail stood. "Sir, I was told by the mistress that the young lady was on a restricted diet," Miller stammered, "to manage her temperamental nature." "Temperamental nature?" Damon's voice dropped to a low, lethal growl. He stepped away from his chair, his tall, imposing frame casting a long shadow. "She is a child who hasn't spoken in 3 years. She doesn't have a temper. She has a broken heart. And you think starving her is the cure?" Before Miller could answer, his sister, Cassandra Moretti, glided into the room. Draped in midnight blue silk, she carried an air of effortless authority. "Damon, darling, please. You are frightening the staff over a triviality. If the girl wants to act like a peasant, she can eat like one. She uses her silence as a weapon to control you." Damon looked at Elena. At the sound of Cassandra's voice, the child's shoulders hunched, her small chin dipping toward her chest. She wasn't just shy. She was flinching. For the first time, Damon looked at his sister through a lens of suspicion. "Dismissed," Damon whispered to the staff. "All of you, get out." Once the room cleared, Damon knelt on the cold marble floor at Elena's end of the table. "Elena," he said softly, his voice cracking, "talk to me. Just once. Tell me what you want." Elena remained a statue of sorrow. Exhausted, Damon left the room. He wandered into the East Wing, the servants' quarters, a place of laundry and honest labor, far from the marble halls of power. He was about to turn back when a sound stopped him dead in his tracks. It was a voice, a crystalline, hauntingly beautiful voice, rising and falling in a melody that shouldn't exist in this world. It was a lullaby. The notes were delicate, weaving through the quiet hallway, like a ghost seeking rest. Damon's heart skipped a beat. He knew that song. It was the song Isabella his late wife, had written for Elena while she was still in the womb. She had never written it down. Nay, she had never sung it for anyone but Damon and the child. He followed the sound to the linen room. Through a sliver of the door, he saw Elena. Her eyes were bright, lit by a fire he thought was dead. She was singing, and sitting at her feet, holding Elena's small hands with pure love, was Sarah, the quiet maid he had hired 6 months ago. Elena wasn't just singing, she was smiling. Damon pushed the door open. The hinges gave a low, mournful groan. The transformation was devastating. The song died. The light in Elena's eyes vanished, replaced by pure, cold terror. She let out a small, strangled gasp and scrambled behind Sarah, clutching the maid's simple cotton uniform. Sarah stood up, white as a sheet, physically shielding the child from the man who owned her life. "Mr. Moretti," Sarah whispered, her voice a fragile thread. "Please, don't punish her. I'll take the blame." Damon stood frozen. "Elena," he whispered, "you sang her song. Why?" Elena buried her face in Sarah's back. "How long has she been singing to you?" Damon asked Sarah. "She doesn't speak, sir. She only sings when she's scared, when she thinks the bad men are coming," Sarah said, her courage flaring. "She's scared of the people you call family, sir. She's scared of the woman who tells her her voice is a curse. She's scared of your right hand, Stefan, who told her if she ever made a sound, you would send her to a place where the lights never come on." Damon felt a physical blade drive into his chest. "Cassandra? Stefan? My own blood and my most trusted lieutenant?" "Go to her room, sir," Sarah challenged, her eyes wet with tears. "Look behind the loose panel in her closet. See the bruises they leave on her arms where you can't see them. They are breaking her, Mr. Moretti. They are erasing her so they can take what's yours." Damon turned without a word. He didn't roar. He didn't smash anything. He walked with a cold, terrifying purpose to his high-tech security hub. He accessed the black box, a secret redundant camera system even Stefan didn't know about. He watched the footage. He saw Cassandra grab Elena by the jaw, twisting her face in malice. He saw Stefan, his loyal protector, sharing wine with Cassandra in the child's room, laughing as they went over a petition for legal guardianship based on mental incompetence. They were planning to commit Elena to an asylum and declare Damon unfit to rule. Finally, he saw Stefan whisper about a hit at the docks tomorrow night. The betrayal was absolute. The poison had been in his house for years, and he had been too blinded by grief to smell the rot. He looked at the monitor showing the laundry room. Elena was back on the bench, her head on Sarah's lap. Sarah was stroking her hair, a lone candle in a house of darkness. Damon reached for a satellite phone. "Lorenzo," he said to his old, pre-reform crew. "The Vipers are in the house, and I'm going to need a lot of bags." He stood up, his joints popping like gunfire. He reached into his safe, bypassing the elegant pistols he wore to parties. He reached for the heavy, black tactical weapons of his youth. The lion was awake, and the hunt had begun. The morning after Damon's discovery brought a thick, suffocating fog that swallowed the Moretti estate. Inside, Damon was a specter of lethal intent, playing the part of the grieving widower for one last day. And every time he passed Stefan or Cassandra, The primal urge to end them burned in his veins, but he knew the rules. To kill a snake, you must purge the nest. He spent the morning in his gym, his fists hitting the heavy bag with the rhythm of names. Stefan. Thud. Cassandra. Thud. When Stefan entered, draped in a suit worth more than most men's lives, he spoke of a high-value shipment arriving at Pier 42 at 10 p.m. It was a kill box, the perfect place for a tragic accident to claim the Moretti Titan. The Russians are desperate, Stefan, Damon said, wiping sweat from his brow, his back turned to hide the murderous glint in his eyes. That's why I have you. You've never let me down. Never, boss, Stefan smiled. Your family. As Stefan left, Damon met Sarah in secret. I know everything, he told her, handing her an encrypted burner phone. Tonight, Stefan believes I am walking into my grave. Cassandra will try to move Elena to an asylum. My old guard is positioned in the woods. If anyone who isn't you enters Elena's room, press the red button. My men will be inside in 30 seconds. By 9 p.m., the trap was in motion. Damon climbed into the armored SUV with Stefan, gear driving into a night dominated by neon and mist. At Pier 42, the towering cranes looked like prehistoric monsters. As they stepped out, the metallic click of safeties being disengaged echoed from the shadows of shipping containers. You know, Stefan, Damon said, stopping at the edge of the pier. I found you starving in a cellar in Sarajevo. I gave you a name. I thought I gave you a home. Stefan sneered, his mask finally slipping. You gave me a cage, Damon. You got soft, nice rotting for a dead woman and a mute kid. The city wants a leader, not a widower. Tonight, they get one. Stefan pulled his weapon, but he was too slow. Damon whistled, a sharp, piercing sound. 4 red laser dots appeared on Stefan's chest. The security detail had been replaced an hour ago by Lorenzo's hunters. The ship isn't coming, Stefan, Damon growled, taking the gun from the trembling trader's hand. There is no shipment. There's only this. He looked at his men. Put him in a crate destined for the scrapyards. He can spend the rest of his life in the silence he loves so much. But the victory tasted like ash. Damon's burner phone vibrated. The red button had been pressed. Lorenzo, report, Damon barked. Cassandra is moving, boss. Lorenzo's voice crackled. She's armed. She's locked herself in the old chapel with the girl and the maid. She's hysterical. Damon tore away from the pier, hard driving with the desperation of a man who had finally found something worth saving. He reached the estate, skidding onto the gravel as the chapel's red sanctuary lamps flickered. He kicked the heavy doors open to find Cassandra at the altar, a derringer pressed to Elena's temple. One more step and I pull the trigger, Cassandra hissed. Sarah lunged, shielding Elena with her own body. The derringer cracked. Damon tackled Cassandra, pinning her to the floor with a lethal grip. You're finished. Cassandra, he whispered. You'll never hear her voice again. He looked back. Elena was unhurt, huddled in Sarah's arms. Then the miracle happened. Elena walked toward the altar, and for the first time in 3 years, she began to sing. A soft, steady melody that drowned out her aunt's sobs. But as the silence broke, a new horror emerged. Damon recovered Stefan's tablet from the scene, unlocking data that went far beyond a family coup. It was a plan by the architects, a shadow coalition, to liquidate the Moretti empire. In the files, he found a photo taken 2 weeks ago in Rome. A woman in a wide-brimmed hat, wearing a silver locket he had engraved for his wife. It was Isabella. "She's alive," Damon whispered, his world spinning. The car, the funeral, it was all a theater. Suddenly, his desk phone rang. A synthesized voice whispered, "The daughter sings the song of the dead." But echoes eventually fade. "Isabella is a ghost of your making, Damon. But the woman in Rome is very real and very fragile. Check the nursery. We left a gift for the singer." Damon sprinted to Elena's room. On her bedside table sat a black box. Inside was a dried rose and a music box playing their wedding song. A note fell out. "She's waiting in the garden of the forgotten. Midnight. Alone. Or the singer loses her voice forever." "Lorenzo, get the team ready," Damon said, his eyes glowing with a demonic light. "We're going to the old cemetery. I'm going to find out if I'm chasing a miracle or a final, deadly trap." The old Moretti cemetery was a desolate sprawl of granite and ivy, choked by a fog that tasted of salt and ancient grudges. Damon walked through the iron gates at midnight, his hand hovering over his .45. He reached the center, where the weeping willow draped over the family vault. Standing beneath it was a figure he had mourned for 3 years. "Isabella," he whispered. The woman turned. It was her. The same emerald eyes, the same haunting beauty. But the warmth was gone, replaced by a hollow, flickering terror. "Damon," she breathed, "you shouldn't have come." "How?" Damon asked, his heart mending and breaking in the same pulse. "The car. I buried you." "The car was theater," she whispered, her eyes darting to the shadows. "The architects took me. They needed you broken, Damon. A grieving man is predictable. While you were trapped in your sorrow, they were dismantling your empire." "I don't care about the money," Damon said, reaching for her. "I have you. We have Elena. We can leave." Isabella shook her head, tears tracking through the dirt on her cheeks. She pulled back her coat to reveal a sophisticated electronic device strapped to her thigh, a dead man's switch wired into her nervous system. "It's a proximity fuse. If I leave the circle, or if my heart rate drops, the estate is wired to blow. Elena, Sarah, your men, they'll all be erased." Suddenly, the night exploded. 3 black SUVs tore through the cemetery gates, their high-intensity LEDs blinding Damon. Men in matte black tactical gear poured out, the architects, elite cleaners. "Stay down," Damon roared, shoving Isabella behind the marble vault. The graveyard became a slaughterhouse. Damon fired with surgical precision, each crack of his weapon dropping a mercenary into the dirt. But for every man he neutralized, 2 more emerged from the fog. "Damon, the switch," Isabella screamed. The LED on her leg was pulsing a violent red, 180 beats per minute. Her panic was arming the bomb. "Sing, Isabella," Damon commanded, his voice a low rasp over the roar of gunfire. "Focus on the melody. If you don't lower your heart rate, we all die." As the soft, haunting notes of the lullaby rose above the chaos, her breathing leveled. The timer shifted from red to a steady, ominous amber. Damon tapped his earpiece. "Lorenzo, give me a window." "We're pinned, boss," Lorenzo's voice crackled. "They've got a .50 caliber blocking the drive." "Then I'm coming to them," Damon growled. He lunged forward, exposing himself to draw fire, emptying his magazine to give Isabella a path. They sprinted through the undergrowth, dodging grenades and lead as the mansion loomed above them like a dark crown. Suddenly, the mansion's PA system crackled to life. It was the synthesized voice of the architect. Damon, enough. A king without a kingdom is just a man in an expensive suit. I have Elena. The bunker was a clever touch, but I have the bypass codes. Damon's world went white. He checked his tablet. The camera feeds to the bunker were dead. The last frame showed men in gray uniforms entering the safe room. Lorenzo, pull back, Damon barked. Let them think they've won. Damon didn't use the front door. He used the service tunnels, moving with the silence of a predator who had memorized every inch of his cage. He burst into his master study to find a man in a gray cardigan, Julian, and the coalition's executor, sipping Damon's cognac. Elena and Sarah were bound in the corner, zip-tied and terrified. Damon held up the device he had ripped from Isabella's leg. The timer was at 15 seconds. This belongs to you, Damon said. You wouldn't, Julian stammered, his composure shattering. You'll kill everyone. I've been dead for 3 years, Julian, Damon replied. At 5 seconds, he didn't throw the bomb at the men. He threw it into the heavy, reinforced steel fireplace, designed to vent heat from massive logs. Get down! The explosion was muffled by the stone, but the shock wave blew out every window. The heavy oak desk flipped, pinning Julian. Damon lunged for Elena and Sarah, slicing their ties with a knife from his boot. He ripped the tape from his daughter's mouth. I've got you, he whispered. Elena didn't cry. She reached up, her voice breaking through the smoke, not in song, but in speech. Daddy, she whispered, her first word in 3 years. You came back. Damon felt a primal surge of triumph. Lorenzo's team burst in, neutralizing the remaining guards. As Julian was dragged away, Damon carried Elena onto the terrace. The fog was lifting. Isabella was there, waiting. Damon set Elena down. The girl walked toward her mother, the ghost she had sung to for 1,000 nights. They embraced, their voices joining in a hymn for the living. But as Damon watched them, his hand tightened on his weapon. He had saved his family, but the war for the Moretti name had only just begun. The ruins of the Moretti estate were not rebuilt in the image of the past. Damon ensured that every stone turned and every piece of charred timber replaced served a new purpose. The mansion was no longer a fortress of secrets. It became a sanctuary. Using the intel squeezed from Julian, Damon systematically dismantled the architects. He didn't use assassins. He used the truth. He leaked their offshore accounts to the press and their betrayals to each other, watching from his study as the giants of the underworld tore themselves apart. But the true battle was fought in the quiet moments. Isabella's return was not a fairy tale. It was a slow awakening from a 3-year nightmare. Sarah became the bridge, sitting with Isabella through the night terrors and with Elena during the quiet afternoons. Damon realized that while his strength had won the war, Sarah's compassion was winning the peace. True to his word, Sarah was formally adopted into the family registry, the sister Damon deserved, and the anchor Elena needed. 10 years later, the city had changed, but the Moretti name remained a pillar of justice. Damon had retired, handing the legitimate assets to a trust managed by Sarah, now a formidable legal advocate. On a sun-drenched terrace overlooking the Italian coast, Damon sat with Isabella, watching the Mediterranean reflect the peace in their souls. A car wound up the olive-lined driveway, and a young woman stepped out with piercing emerald eyes. It was Elena, now 19, a world-renowned composer. She wasn't just a singer anymore. She was a voice for the voiceless. She walked up the steps and kissed her parents. "The concert in Rome was a success," she said, smiling. But I missed the quiet here." "The quiet is only good when you choose it, Elena," Damon said, pulling his daughter into a hug. As the sun set, a soft melody drifted from the house, Elena's latest symphony. It was the sound of a family that had been broken, mended, and finally redeemed. The Mafia boss had found his daughter. The daughter had found her voice. And the song of the dead wife had become the anthem of a new, beautiful life. If the story of Damon's relentless love and Elena's courage moved you, please show your support. To celebrate the power of finding your voice against all odds, type "sing" in the comments below. We read every story and every comment you share. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share this journey with someone who needs to know that no silence is permanent. Thank you for being part of our storytelling family. We'll see you in the next one.